Am I the asshole for not babysitting for my sister-in-law anymore after she called the police on me? My sister-in-law and I have an agreement. She watches my kids 3 days a week, and I watch hers 3 days a week. This agreement has stood since March 2020 without issues. Any changes have been discussed weeks in advance. A couple weeks ago, we had an argument. The next day, I brought my kids to her house, dropped them off, and left. I didn't speak to my sister-in-law, because when one of us is in a rush, like I was, it's standard for us to just let the kids out, stay in the car, and drive off when you see the door open. I drove to work, about 40 minutes away. When I got there, I had about 20 missed calls, and even more texts, all from my sister-in-law, all saying she didn't want to watch the kids given our argument. Her first text arrived a little before I got to her place, but I didn't see it until I got to work because my phone is always on silent when I drive. I rang her, said I'll arrange to work from home, then come get the kids. She said I have 45 minutes to get back to her place or she would call the police. I told my supervisor the situation, and she said I could leave after I did a few things. This delayed me 20 minutes. When I got back to my sister-in-law's, just over an hour later, she said she'd already called the police when the 45 minutes ran out. I then had to stick around long enough to tell the officer that I didn't abandon my children, there was just a communication issue. Sister-in-law and I had another shouting match later over this. I arranged other childcare for my kids and I've been mostly ignoring her since. However, she reached out and apologized, and has asked if I'd be willing to go back to the old childcare arrangement. I've told her to go fuck herself. I work with kids. If I got child abandonment on my record, I would never work in my field again, which she knew, and her calling the police was a massive overreaction, so if she needs a babysitter she can go whistle for all I care. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police, and I did this to myself, as she gave me a warning with that first text and I could have checked my phone or spoken to her directly when I got to her place, all of which she says she would have done if she were in my position, given that we'd argued the night before. I've told her that if she thinks I'm babysitting for her, she's fucking delusional, and she's on her own. Because of my refusal, it's looking like she may have to quit her job because my brother and her would pay more for a babysitter than they would earn from her working. My mother and brother have both called me an arsehole because there were no consequences to her calling the police, and that while she overreacted, she's apologized, so if I really forgive her, I'll let us move on. This income loss would also mean that she, my brother, and my niece and nephew might need to move somewhere cheaper, that my brother might have to take on extra hours at work, and in an extreme scenario they may even be completely unable to live independently, meaning they'd have to move in with her parents, who live several hours away. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. The only delusional person here is Sil, who calls the police on an essential worker out of spite. Let her struggle to find childcare or lose her job. You could have easily lost yours. Not the asshole. Don't let her reel you back in. She still blames you for her calling the police, which means she isn't sorry and would do it again. Her losing you as a babysitter is a consequence of her actions. NTA. She wanted to escalate it, enjoy the outcome of the escalation. I'm annoyed that the brother and Mill aren't telling her that she effed up. Not the asshole. 1. She's so lacking in impulse control that she didn't game out the very reasonable and obvious consequences of calling the police. A lack of common sense isn't a great trait in a childcare provider. 2. Her apology is self-serving. 3. Even if you return to the prior caregiving arrangement, you would never again have confidence that she won't try a similar stunt. Not the asshole. I think there is more than one story about that. 1. Yeah, she's apologized and told you it was really your fault for not checking your phone. Poor her. She didn't have a choice, right? 2. She didn't even think that her calling the police could have consequences like that? That's not just evil, that's stupid. Toddler-like stupid. 3. It is not about forgiving, I guess, it is about trust. I would never trust her again with anything. Never. Maybe next time she's having a tantrum she'll decide that you abused her children? Not the asshole. She was putting your job, your livelihood, parental rights to your kids, on the line. She was willing to risk hurting the kids despite them not having any control over the situation. Now she's upset because she might lose her job? You're totally fine for not wanting to have your children stay with this unpredictable loose cannon. She called the police on you, putting your job in jeopardy, because she was angry about another argument. From what you've written, it seems this arrangement was more beneficial to her than it was to you. She needs to learn not to bite the hand that feeds her. Not the asshole. Also, if your mother and brother think that babysitting her children isn't a big deal, then they can do it. Not the asshole. And wow. She is deranged for taking it that far. I wouldn't trust her around my kids after that. She had no regards for you or your job, family, kids by calling the police over nothing but her need to be petty. My suggestion would be to stay away from her, and you don't need to explain yourself. What she did speaks for itself, and you need to protect yourself and your family by staying away from her. Not the asshole. What on earth was she thinking? That she could be a baby about things and there would be no consequences? Your kids were with the police. Doesn't she think it was scary for them to be taken by the police because mom didn't leave work quickly enough on such short notice? Doesn't she think this would be stressful for you? Just because there were no consequences, doesn't mean consequences were impossible. No, don't give in on this. I'm very furious in your behalf, and any consequences are on her exclusively. Edit. A word. Edit 2. I made a mistake and realized the cops didn't actually take the kids. I don't think it's relevant either way. She was a huge jerk. Not the asshole. Not even a little bit. She didn't tell you during the argument she wasn't going to watch your kids the next day. She waited for you to be on your way to drop them off to tell you. Then expected you to be able to just instantly walk out of work, pray there isn't any traffic, and get to her house in 45 minutes, which is usually a 40-minute drive. Then deliberately tried to F up your life and career over a miscommunication. What a b. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. An apology does not mean you have to revert back to the relationship you had before. You absolutely can move on, by having a polite in-law relationship. Not by giving her the opportunity to be a raging bee and royally screw you again. Her finances aren't your problem. Not the asshole. Your mother and brother along with Sil are absolutely delusional that they would think that for 1 second that you would ever have those children over at your house ever again, or that you would ever bring your children to their house. If Sil loses her job, I guess that they will accuse you of causing them to lose their house, run up credit cards, etc. They all deserve a hard no and a cut-off of their nonsensical calls. Not the asshole. Calling the police was taking it too far. Info. What was the subject of your argument? Not the asshole. And what if the cops had pressed charges? What if you had lost your kids? She does not understand the ramifications of what could have happened. She nuked her relationship with you, she nuked her relationship with your kids and has to accept that. She can be all woe is me to your brother and your mom, but I would cut her off. You should tell them that you cannot trust her anymore with your kids, and maybe in time she can earn that trust back. She had a sweet deal going on. I would love to have someone watch my kids 3 days a week, and I would totally be fine having double amount of kids for 3 days just to have those 3 sweet off days. Not the asshole. No way would I ever trust her again. She's a hothead and extremely poor lack of judgment. Do not trust her with your kids. As far as losing her job, too bad, she should have thought of that before calling police. Just because someone apologizes doesn't mean they are forgiven. It is a bit weird to not check with Sil even after an argument so big she'd refuse to watch your kids. I have a hard time imagining you left that argument feeling like nothing about the child care agreement had changed, needed to be revisited. But for her to be so completely unreasonable as to give you a deadline and waste the cops' time because she's mad at you, is worse. What the hell, people, I am surprised to see so many NTA for me. It's a very clear Even if it is routine, you should not be unreachable, silent phone while driving, when someone else is watching your kids. Also, it kind of reads like you knew she didn't want to watch them, plus she clearly told you she would call the police. Way to traumatize your kids. On the other hand, she is out of her mind to think that her calling the police wouldn't impact the babysitting arrangement. Be grown-ups and talk things out. It seems like you both benefit from this babysitting thing. Not the asshole. She clung to a grudge too, and it affected your kids. They were probably confused and anxious, and then the police showed up. Actions have consequences. She took your argument out on your kids. She could have cost you your career. It's different making the decision to leave your job and being fired and blacklisted from your job. If the police did think you abandoned your children, they could have been at risk too. Edit. Took out waiting outside the door as I misread the situation. I sadly don't know how to just do the strike out. Not the asshole. There was a consequence for her calling the police. You have decided to stop babysitting for her. Your mother and brother should also realize that you can accept an apology, but that doesn't automatically mean the person is forgiven. I also think that the timing of her text was deliberate. She knew you put your phone on silent when you drove. If she didn't want to watch your kids, why didn't she call night before? She wanted to cause you problems. Not the asshole for not babysitting. That bond between you is broken and can't come back. I think it was destroyed when she went nuclear and called the police. However, I think you were in the wrong for just dropping the kids off without speaking when you were in the middle of an argument, because it doesn't sound like it was resolved the day before, so you should have checked she was happy to have the kids. Not the asshole. I would advise jotting down all of the best points from the comments. There are many. Compose them into a simple email with bullet points and send it to brother, sil, and mother. Say you have made alternative childcare arrangements and are done with the previous arrangement. Actions have consequences and trust has been lost. Good luck and all the best. Heart. Not the asshole. And you're exactly right, she's 100% delusional. Who in their right mind would think calling the cops was an appropriate reaction to the situation, and that you would just get over it and go back to babysitting for her? She could do this again the next time she gets pissed at you, and your career would be in jeopardy. She made her bed, now she can lay in it. Edit to add. She didn't want to watch your kids because of an argument? She's willing to punish your kids for something that they had nothing to do with and put your job in danger all over a squabble? I mean, did you purposely kill her dog or something? I'd question her judgment and impulse control. Not the asshole. Do not babysit for her again. She didn't think about you possibly losing your job when she called the cops. Now she can lose hers and figure out her own childcare. Next time she'll think before she reacts. She owes you an apology. Not the asshole. She was willing to traumatize your kids by possibly having them taken into custody by the police or CYS. Thankfully cooler heads prevailed. Just because she was angry at you. This alone makes her completely untrustworthy to ever watch or be alone with your kids again. Info. How bad was the original argument? Not the asshole. Don't engage with her at all. Next time she gets pissed off at you, she may not give you the warning that she's going to call the police. She has proven herself to be vindictive and willing to punish the children to hurt you. Your mother and brother can go kick rocks. Just repeat that the subject is not open for discussion, that as soon as she called the police, she terminated the relationship. There's nothing to stop her from overreacting again and repeating the apology. What she did severed your relationship completely. What, if anything, did Sil tell your kids? The whole thing has to have been awful for them. Not the asshole. My mother and brother have both called me an arsehole because there were no consequences to her calling the police. There were consequences. She's proven herself so spiteful that after an argument she will 1. Suddenly decide not to look after her nieces nephews literally as they are dropped off for a regularly scheduled thing. 2. Immediately call the police on you for child abandonment given the opportunity if she's pissed off. 3. Manipulate to try and get her kids looked after realizing she messed up. 4. Go crying to her husband, your mom, if she doesn't get her way. The consequences are you cannot trust her and have called off the arrangement. Saying, I'm sorry, now look after my kids, won't fix this. I've told her to go fuck herself. Best response possible. Not the asshole. She blew things way out of control by calling the police, and I understand why the relationship is done for you and why you wouldn't want to watch her kids anymore. But who doesn't keep an eye on their phone when their kids are with a sitter? 20 missed calls? What if this wasn't about a fight and one of your kids was sick or bleeding or something? Check your damn phone. For context, what was the original disagreement with your sister-in-law about? Not the asshole. Your SIL put you in a very dangerous position, which fortunately did not result in anything terrible, but it is perfectly legitimate for you not to put yourself in such a potentially dangerous position again. If I were you, I would forgive your SIL, pretend to let go of your anger, but refuse to enter into the agreement again because of your fear that it might happen again. Don't argue about probabilities or promises. Don't claim that you are being reasonable. Although you are, just refuse to start up again because you realize how vulnerable you are in the situation they propose and don't feel comfortable with it. Not the asshole. Given the huge hassle you had after her pettiness following an argument, I wouldn't risk relying on her to babysit in future. And if she is that reliant on you babysitting for her, then she shouldn't have refused to watch your kids and phone the police. NTA. Who does that? It's too bad, you guys had a good situation going. Sad face. Not the asshole. It's not overreacting to be angry when the cops are called on you. Even if there's no consequences. It's not overreacting to be unwilling to watch her kids after she dropped your babysitting session with no prior warning. She's shown herself capable of doing those things. You're not willing to expose yourself or your children to that risk again, and anyone who wants you to do that to make her life easier can go kick rocks. She has to quit her job because she can't afford a babysitter? Looks like someone realized they live in a glass house after they threw a brick in your window. Your problem? I think not. Not the asshole. Your SIL called the police on you and expects you to go on like nothing ever happened? Especially with what a charge could do to your employment. She will be lucky if you even talk to her again. About her having to quit her job that is the consequence of her own actions. She burned the bridge between the two of you. She needs to learn to live with that. Also, I'll bet she knows what a child abandonment charge would do to you, and she knows this would give her power over you. Don't make yourself vulnerable to her again. Not the asshole. She totally crossed the line calling the cops because you were 15 minutes late for her arbitrary deadline. You are right to protect yourself and your career. If she did it once, she'll do it again when she's in a snit over some imagined slight. I'm surprised he didn't give her a ticket over falsifying a police report. Not the asshole. Her behavior was ridiculous. I'd go low to no contact with her and anyone who says you should get over it. She was fine screwing you over until it impacted her. What did she think was going to happen? She burned that bridge. It's not up to you to rebuild it. Well, if that isn't the consequences of my own actions? Not the asshole. Not the asshole, but you really glossed over what the initial argument was about and missing the text she sent before you dropped the kids off. Also weird that you felt fine dropping your kids off after the initial argument and assuming things would be normal. Still, no excuse for her to call the cops. That is ridiculous. First of all, if you got into a shouting match with her, you should definitely have checked that your childcare arrangement was still intact. Second, you basically kicked your children out of the car and drove away. She obviously didn't even have time to flag you down in the driveway. Who does that? Could it have perhaps been because you knew full well that she no longer wanted to watch your children, so you dumped them and ran? I'm not buying this version of events. Either way, neither of you need to be watching each other's children anymore. The kids don't deserve to be in the middle of this soap opera drama. Not the asshole. She wanted to start some drama because she was in a mood, instead of putting the children and your job security first. Emo, she fucked around and found out that actions have consequences. For your sister, sucks to suck. Not the asshole. There were consequences for her calling the police, just ones she doesn't like. Not the asshole. Your mother can babysit if she is so concerned. Don't let yourself be dependent on the goodwill of your brother or SIL. Info. What was the initial argument about? Edit. Op is avoiding my other question and said in another comment that a lot was said, some of which she regrets, which leads me to believe it was a super heated argument. Your SIL is an asshole, but you can't just assume someone you pissed off is going to watch your kids without you guys discussing it, Sue_. Not the asshole at all. Sil completely overreacted. And now she can eat the consequences of her actions. Hate to break it to your mom and brother, but the consequences of her calling the police was your brother and Sil losing their childcare. Also, when she tells you if you had done A, B, or C then it'd be fine, but you made her do it, therefore it's your fault? That's not an apology. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, she made her bed, now she can sleep in it. She should have thought about that before she called the police. Not your kids, not your problem. And your mother can watch the kids herself. Nothing happened, this time. What about next time? I'd see if I get downvotes. It seems that you are trying to make yourself look as innocent as possible, and some people here are calling for it. You didn't say what the argument was about and you just dropped kids off at your sister's house like nothing ever happened.